Mayad Aldao, good day Buksuans, the Philippines and the world. Welcome to Botanica Talks, a podcast series of Bukidnon State University. I am Dr. Leslie Casas Lubos, botanist, professor, and director of Buxus Botanical Gardens and Herbarium. Thank you for joining us as we continue exploring the remarkable stories of people whose lives are deeply rooted in environmental stewardship, sustainability, and community empowerment. Today, we sit down with a woman whose lifelong dedication to one remarkable plant has made her a respected figure in the fields of climate adaptation, community development, and sustainable agriculture. Our guest, Ma'am Myrna Disipulo, is locally known as the mother of the giant bamboo. But behind that title is a story of service, expertise, and leadership. Ma'am Myrna co-founded one of Bukidnon's most active bamboo nurseries, which has produced and distributed almost 1 million bamboo propagules across the Philippines. Her hands-on work has supported farmers, LGUs, and indigenous peoples, communities in restoring degraded lands and building climate-resilient livelihoods. Her expertise led her to become a principal trainer for climate adaptation programs under PhilCapNet, where she taught indigenous leaders and rural communities how to plant bamboo sustainably, intercrop with food crops, and create value-added products. Ma'am Myrna, welcome to Botanica Talks, and thank you for being with us today.
Hi, thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you, Ma'am Myrna. It is truly an honor to have you here. You are known as the mother of the giant bamboo. What first inspired you to focus your life's work on growing and promoting bamboo, especially Dendrocalamus asper species?
I really don't know how I was given the title, but I consider myself as not only a mother, but already a grandmother who loves bamboo. So I started as a researcher. The then Forest Research Institute based in Los Baños, Laguna. And that because it is Forest Research Institute and I am a forester, we have to make researches in forestry. So actually, I started with bamboo and rattan because usually before, you cannot separate bamboo from rattan, especially in the world market. So I started with bamboo and rattan as a researcher. Actually, I have started in early 80s. That was, I had only one child then. And now I have already 4 apples, 4 grandchildren. And I am still with bamboo. Actually, as a researcher, until now, I am still a researcher. I cannot depart myself from bamboo and from research. So I started as a researcher and I focused on bamboo and rattan. And then later, the demand for rattan was not that good. So I focused on bamboo. So especially that giant bamboo is known in Bukidnon. And when you say giant bamboo, what comes first in the mind of the people in the Philippines is Bukidnon. But somebody says, no mom, it's not. When we heard about giant bamboo, it's Myrna Disipulo before Bukidnon. So that's it. So I started from propagating. Actually, in 1986, we gathered different parts of bamboo to determine what is the best planting material. So we did a study of that, the poles, the cuttings, the branches, and the rhizome, the underground stem. So that's how I started with bamboo.
So that is truly inspiring, Ma'am Myrna. No? Your story shows how passion can grow into a lifelong mission. And that uplifts both people and the environment. Your dedication reminds us how one person's advocacy can create ripples of change. So when you first started working with bamboo, what inspired you to view it not just as a raw material, but as a plant with ecological and cultural benefits?
Bamboo has not only, it is a grass actually. So it is a grass that provides everybody economically, environmentally, and it has very great aesthetic values. And speaking of sustainability, bamboo itself is a sustainable commodity. That's why I really studied how it can be managed in the plantation so that its sustainability is always remains and developed and improved. That's why bamboo really is not only a grass. Many said it is a tree, it's not. So, and bamboo just gives itself. Whether we like it or not, it produces shoots that will develop into poles. And this is where economics can come in with bamboo.
So thank you for sharing that perspective, Ma'am Myrna. It reminds us that plants, not just resources, they carry cultural, ecological, and even emotional significance.
Correct.
And your insight helps deepen public appreciation of bamboo's multifaceted value. Based on your long experience, what makes bamboo different from other plants in terms of how fast it grows, how strong it is, and how it helps the environment?
Okay. If you say now we are confronted with climate change, and in climate change, what will come into our mind is pollution. And it is said that about 75% of the pollutants are carbon dioxide. And we can do a lot to mitigate these pollutants, this carbon dioxide. This is the most abundant pollutant that anybody can just help to mitigate. That is planting plants, any green plants. In bamboo, in terms of carbon dioxide sequestration, it is more than 30% compared to fast-growing trees.
Wow.
So meaning, it can sequester more than 30% of the carbon dioxide. Actually, I tried to measure because usually carbon dioxide is measured through the biomass. So I measured the biomass of a giant bamboo, but it was already 15-year-old plantation. And I found out that no less than 40 tons per hectare per year can be produced by the giant bamboo. And if 50% of that is carbon, meaning you have sequestered 20 tons of carbon dioxide per hectare per year. So that's a good thing about bamboo compared to some other plants. And for industry, we do not have trees now. We cannot cut, and even our planted trees are now regulated.
Yeah, true.
So we have to find alternative in terms of construction. So the alternative species is bamboo. And we found out that giant bamboo is really good. And it is now the priority commodity for engineered bamboo. These engineered bamboos are made, actually we have already 4 factories in Region 10 producing giant bamboo, engineered bamboos. And 3 of these are industrial scale. One is more on a backyard. But he is doing a lot of advocacies for processing of bamboo. So that's why we are just happy that for industry, we have already these factories that producing engineered bamboos using our giant bamboos.
So indeed, bamboo's resilience and fast growth make it extraordinary. And your explanation helps our listeners appreciate why it stands out among other ecological solutions. It highlights how bamboo plays a key role in nature-based climate strategies. With climate change affecting many areas, how can bamboo help protect the land, such as preventing soil erosion, stabilizing slopes, and reducing floods?
Okay. Although bamboo is not deeply rooted, just like some other trees in the Nara, the Labuans, but its roots moves vertically, horizontally, and it entangles well, and then it holds soil. So in terms of surface runoff, the roots of bamboo can hold the soil for going into erosion. So preventing with its roots, it prevents erosion of the topsoil.
So that is really a valuable insight, Ma'am Myrna. Your experience clearly shows how bamboo can serve as a natural defender, and especially in vulnerable areas. It underscores bamboo's important role in climate adaptation and disaster risk reduction.
Correct.
What special traits of the Philippine giant bamboo make it a strong choice for reforestation and restoring damaged forests?
Okay, as I have said earlier, we cannot cut now from the natural forest, and even the unregulated planted trees before are now regulated. So we have this bamboo that is most, in terms of industry, it can be used in place of the wood, and actually, whatever you produce from the wood can be produced out of bamboo. Anything that you can produce out of wood, it can be produced out of bamboo.
So thank you, Ma'am Myrna. Highlighting these traits emphasizes why our own native bamboo species deserve greater attention in restoration efforts. Your explanation advocates for locally rooted solutions to ecological challenges. You have trained many farmers and communities. What were the biggest challenges you faced in teaching people about bamboo growing, and how did you overcome them?
Okay. When you tell people to plant bamboo for the environment, they will not hear you. It should be with a peso. How much is their income if you plant bamboo? So that's why this is a very great challenge, because from the plantation establishment, you have to wait no less than 6 years before you can cut bamboo as a pole.
Okay.
Although after 3 years, you can harvest bamboo shoots.
Oh, that's nice.
And bamboo shoot has a huge demand now, especially in Asian countries. So if we can produce if you can process bamboo into food in terms of shoot, then this is a good industry for us. And mind you, giant bamboo is the best among the species of bamboo. It is said that there are more than 1,000 species of bamboo in the
Yeah,
whole world.
that's true.
Yeah. But in terms of shoot production, in terms of the goodness of the shoot, then giant bamboo is number one. Actually, there is a plantation developed by my an Indonesian. They are planting bamboo for shoot production, and we can do it actually. And I have visited a farm who, usually in our place, we harvest only shoot during rainy season. But in a farm that we visited, they harvest 8 months in a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's management of plantation. So you can manage the plantation into shoot production, into pole production, and into just for protection of the area.
Okay. So that is very enlightening, Ma'am Mirna, no? Your dedication to empowering farmers and communities reflects the heart of sustainable development and people-centered and knowledge-driven. Your experience teaches us the value of patience and persistence in community education. Bamboo is known as an eco-friendly plant. How does it help not only in the environment, but also create jobs and improve lives in the community?
There are many ways and forms that bamboo can be translated into an income. Just like, for example, in my case, I am developing a nursery
Wow.
of giant bamboo. And what is the planting material that I use is a waste in the farm. Because when you harvest the poles, there are branches, and these branches are only waste in the farm. So the gatherers, the harvesters, gather these branches and bring to my nursery. That is already an income for them.
Wow.
Yeah, in a few hours,
That's nice.
just from harvesting
Mhm.
the poles, gather the branches, then they can sell the branches and be made into planting material. So from potting of the branches, it takes 4 to 6 months
Okay.
for these plants to be plantable, ready for field planting. So within 6 months, you can have already another income from the branches alone. That is considered waste in the farm.
So indeed, bamboo creates a bridge between environmental protection and livelihood improvement. Your work shows how one plant can transform entire communities. It demonstrates how sustainability and economic growth can go hand in hand.
Correct. And the nursery now works as a community-based, because whenever there are big demand, for example, I had a contract of 100,000 planting materials to raise. So one of my nursery workers would say, "Mom, I will take the 5,000. I will raise the 5,000." Then another, "I will take 10,000. They will raise that in their backyard. So there was a time when my contract for 100,000, 40,000
Oh.
what remained in me, because these were distributed within about 6 nurseries already. So this is community based, and they have this income after 6 months, because we were assured of the market because of the contract that we had.
Looking back at your journey as a bamboo advocate, which accomplishments are you most proud of and why?
Oh, I am telling the whole Philippines that Region 10 has already 4 industrial factories for bamboo. because none of this can be found in some other areas. Maybe only in La Union, where one established a processing plant. But for Region 10, we had already 4 industrials.
Wow,
So that's a very good
Yeah.
accomplishment that we
Yeah.
had. Actually, one of the American base.
Congratulations.
One of the American base. One time we had a meeting with USAID representatives. He was telling these representatives that, do you know what? This lady inspired us to go into Giant Bamboo. So it was so great for me. I was so proud of that.
Yeah, that is truly admirable, Ma'am Myrna. Your achievements demonstrate how consistent advocacy can create lasting impact across generations. Your journey inspired others to pursue long-term environmental missions. So, Ma'am Merns, how do you see the future of bamboo in the Philippines, both for protecting nature and supporting local economies?
Oh, great future. Because that American-based company, it is not Koopman, is saying that they have a huge demand for bamboo products for America and Europe.
So, a wonderful vision. Your insights give hope that bamboo will continue to shape a greener, more sustainable Philippines. It opens possibilities for scaling bamboo-based innovations across the country. Finally, what message would you like to share with young people, students, and environmental advocates who want to work or who want to study bamboo toward a greener, more sustainable future?
Mm. There are a lot of things that we need to study more with bamboo. Actually, the question on how many poles that can be produced into 1 cubic meter of solid bamboo wood, I cannot answer that. These are still the things that we need to do. Because in terms of industry, we need volume. We measure through volume. Just like, for example, that company in its rice in Quequendioro, they are saying that they have a 1 truckload of bamboo daily. That's their need. And they want to increase that into 2 truckloads daily. No? So now, what is really needed is how these poles can be made into boards. How many of that can be made into a 8x4 board? How many poles? And these are still researchable areas. And for the young people, we need really to plan. This is the only thing that we can participate in climate change. That if there is no plant, then hindi uso tao. You know what?
Yeah.
Because the plants are producers and we are consumers. What shall we consume if there are no producers? So we really need to plant not only bamboos but some other species. So we need to plant. These are really what I am saying to the young people because they are still young. We are now on our...
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
So they need more oxygen.
Yeah, oxygen.
We will not buy the oxygen from the tank. Masyadong mahal. So, we need the oxygen. And we need to capture, to sequester carbon dioxide. And that is only through planting. So, not only bamboos, but I still advocate for bamboo being fast carbon dioxide sequestration.
So, Ma'am Merns, thank you for that heartfelt message. Your words will surely inspire young people to pursue environmental stewardship with passion and purpose, it leaves our listeners with a powerful reminder of their role in shaping the future. Thank you for joining us today on Botanica Talks. May this conversation with Ma'am Myrna Disipulo remind us that powerful climate solutions can begin with a single plant and grow into a movement that protects our land, uplifts our communities, and transforms generations. This is Dr. Leslie Casas Lubos. Until next time, keep exploring, keep discovering, and above all, keep safeguarding the richness of our natural and cultural heritage for future generations. Only here on